Morning everybody, I've just come back from a week cycling in Girona and you can see the video on my channel. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to compare and contrast a few different cycling destinations which you might be considering for your next trip. And the ones I want to consider are Tenerife, Lanzarote, Sardinia, Majorca and Girona itself. Now, first of all, I ought to say that my view of these various destinations could well be influenced by where I actually stayed. For example, on Tenerife, you can stay in the north or you can stay in the south. In Majorca, there's lots of different places you can stay. So it may be that what my comments are purely based around the place that I stayed, and if you stayed somewhere else on the island or in a particular location, your view of things could be different. So first of all, let's start with Tenerife. You can stay, as I say, in the north or the south or the east or the west. I stayed in the south of the island in a place called Los Cristianos, which is near Playa Las Americas, which is one of the main holiday resorts on Tenerife. I have to say I didn't particularly like Los Cristianos. I am a bit of a snob. It's a bit of a karaoke place. There's a lot of full English breakfast. There's a lot of cups of tea, what is Red Barrel. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not pretty in any particular way. It's not beautiful. There isn't a lot to see. There isn't a lot to do. There's a beach there. Yes, there's plenty of bars. There's some not very interesting shops. And you can wander around and looking at most of the residents, you spend a lot of time drinking or you spend a lot of time smoking. Don't want to be a snob, but that was my view of the place. But the reason you go to Tenerife is to climb Mount Teide. Now, Mount Teide is a volcano, largely extinct, which dominates the whole of the island. And you can climb it from a number of different routes. Now, one benefit that Los Cristianos does have is that you can climb Mount Teide from the sea pretty much as far as the summit. So you can start at the ground level, you start climbing and you don't stop until you get as far up as you can go. And once you get out of Los Cristianos, once you get off some of the main roads and you get onto the more quiet roads, as you go up Mount Teide, it is beautiful. You go up through the forests, you go up through the woods, the roads are generally good quality. There's a fair few cyclists, but it's not very busy with cars. It's a quite a I wouldn't exactly say demanding climb. There are steep bits to it, and obviously it's a very long climb, but it's not a very hard climb. And you spend a couple of hours doing it, you get to the top and it's a fabulous view, and then there are some wonderful descents. So let me say that the weather in Tenerife is generally very, very good, particularly in the winter months. It's a good place to stay, although Los Cristianos was not my particular favourite. Mount Teide is a fabulous place to climb. Apart from climbing Mount Teide and the roads around Mount Teide, a lot of the roads aren't particularly pleasant, aren't particularly interesting, they're quite busy. Second place I want to consider is Lanzarote. Now, Lanzarote is again part of the Canary Islands. It's a purely volcanic island and it's made of volcanic rock. So it's very interesting in terms of the landscape. You won't see, well, I don't know that you see a similar landscape anywhere else. There is very little vegetation on the island. There is a lot of very black, hard rock that you can walk on to a certain extent, but it must be pretty uncomfortable. The roads are very clear. They're very good roads. They're not that busy. The disadvantage that Lanzarote has is it's very windy and it isn't particularly interesting once you've got over that fascinating volcanic landscape. Once you've done a certain number of routes, there isn't that much variety. You're going to be doing the same kind of roads, the same kind of climbs, the same kind of routes across the same kind of landscape. So the weather is generally very good. It's very hot, it's very sunny, but it is very windy. Now, Majorca again is a very popular island. There's a lot of different places to stay. I stayed in the northeast of the island in Port de Pollença. Now, Port de Pollença is a very nice, pretty little, not village, it's more than a village, it's a town, but it's not a big high-rise place like Alcudia, which is round the bay, and where there are a lot of big high-rise hotels. Port de Pollença is not like that. There's a lot of apartment hotels, there's a lot of low-rise hotels. It's a pretty place. The beach beaches are lovely. It's not particularly crowded, although there are a lot of cyclists. There are some great routes that you can do around there. You've probably heard of the climb, or the road and the climb out to the lighthouse at Formentor, which gets very busy. You've probably heard of the climb of Sacalobra, which you can get to in about an hour's ride or so from Port de Pollença. Again, a little bit like Lanzarote, there's a fairly limited number of routes, and once you've done them, you're going to be doing the same thing again. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but there is a certain lack of variety. Weather is nice, although not as good as Tenerife in the winter months. You can still get rain and quite cold weather. And if you look at some of the pro teams when they're out doing their training camps in sort of February or March, you'll see that generally they're wearing leg warmers, they're wearing arm warmers, they're wearing buffs, they're wearing gloves. It's obviously quite cold. But Majorca, nice place to ride, although incredibly popular with cyclists. Now, Sardinia, which is just off the coast of Italy, is a very large island, very popular island. I stayed in the northeast of the island. I didn't particularly enjoy Sardinia. It may have something to do with where we were staying, but I found the roads quite narrow and quite busy and quite sort of major roads, and we didn't find a great many pleasant, quiet roads. You sometimes felt you were being pushed off the road by the cars. So yes, the weather was good, the food is nice, it's a nice place, but perhaps we'd just chosen the wrong place on Sardinia to ride our bikes. Would I go back again? Well, I wouldn't go back to the same place I stayed, which is in the northeast. I might go back to some other places, but I wouldn't rush to do it. There are other places I prefer. So the last place is Girona, which is the one that I've come back from. And if you've watched my video of Girona, and if you haven't, feel free to watch it, you will see that I had a wonderful time. Girona, if you don't know it, is in Catalonia. It's in northeastern Spain. It's about 40 minutes train journey from Barcelona, so it's inland. It's not an island, obviously. It's about 45 minutes or an hour's cycle ride to the coast at the Costa Brava. Girona itself is a city of about 100,000 people with a fairly big modern part of the city, but a fascinating old town. And the old town is beautiful. There's a medieval wall surrounding the town. There are very narrow streets, lots of steps going up and down, dark alleyways. It is a beautiful place to wander around. And in terms of the cycling, well, there's a big variety of routes. You've got easy climbs, you've got hard climbs, you've got lots of gravel routes. You can ride out to the coast, you can ride up to the Pyrenees, although that's a little bit farther. You've probably heard of the famous climbs. Roca Corba is one, which we did, or Els Angels, which is another one. It's very popular with cyclists. As you may well know, it was popularised partly by Lance Armstrong, George Hincapie. There's still a lot of cyclists, professional cyclists, who live there. David Miller, I believe, still lives just outside of town, not quite sure where. And there's a number of other pro cyclists. There are some fabulous cycling cafes. There are plenty of places to hire a bike. There are plenty of Airbnb places. It's a great place to stay. So of all the destinations that I've visited, I would say that Girona is the best. And if I was looking for one to go back to, I would go back to Girona first, Majorca second, but a different part of Majorca, because I guess I've done Port de Pollença. Tenerife, because Mount Teide is a fabulous place to climb, even if the rest of the island isn't such a fascinating place to visit. Next, Lanzarote, partly because it's a little bit boring and very windy, and last, Sardinia, because I just didn't enjoy it all that much. So, if you are thinking of going to any of these places, I hope this has been at least some guidance to you, some interest to you. If you like my videos, you can give me a thumbs up. If you don't like my videos, you can give me a thumbs down. If you want to make any comments or ask any questions, I'll be happy to respond to them. And if you want to subscribe to my channel so that you get an email when I upload a new video, please do. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.